It's true. And I think when people have that choice or realize they have that choice all the way through. I mean, it's so much different or more difficult when you have young kids at home. I mean, I know you're in that and
Hmm.
I'm through it, but I do remember that being, you didn't even have time to think about
Yeah.
what you even wanted, right? Let
Hmm.
alone, I remember after our kids were gone and Trev and I were starting to hang out more just on our own and we didn't have the same responsibilities. We actually went out camping for a couple few weeks with just the idea of, let's see what we still have to talk about. Let's
Yeah.
see if that friendship is still there the same way it used to be, because you don't
Yeah.
really know
Yeah.
if all that time has gone by. And I remember, because I have had, I guess what I would call extreme thinking. So
Hmm.
I can swing all the way one way or all the way. So I can
Yeah.
go from being really frustrated and angry and like nothing works and like
Yeah.
throw the baby out with the bathwater, to complete and full forgiveness
Yeah.
when there's been no accountability and no actual understanding of the situation. It's almost like, let's throw it, bury it under the rug, because that's just easier, right?
Yeah.
And you learn these habits, and when you're really busy with family and kids, and even if you don't have kids, that sort of middle stage of life is just very, it's just very functional.
Hmm.
And I remember talking to the therapist, and her saying to me something like, Raelene, what if it wasn't so extreme? Like, what if you can be super upset and super angry or super disappointed about this thing, this situation, but it's not marriage ending, and it doesn't mean that you're a bad person because you feel like that, and it doesn't mean that you have to swing all the way to the other side, and just like, what if it could be both? Like,
Yeah.
what if both things are true? And I remember being like, what the hell are you talking about? like
Yeah.
there was like a concept that hadn't been ever in my brain. Like, I
Hmm.
had never really considered that it didn't have to be so big on either side. And
Yeah.
I've thought about that even with relationships, with friendships, or my siblings, or where, I mean, I've always been that kind of person to maybe be accused of being over dramatic
Hmm.
or overly sensitive. And certainly there's some truth to the overly sensitive part, just from childhood, right? It's
Yeah.
always been a bit of my nature. But really thinking a little bit deeper about what being over dramatic means, or is it just that I feel or felt like my um, expression of emotion had to be so big in order to be heard,
Hmm.
when really, if I dialed it back 20%, I would still be heard. And maybe that would make everybody, including myself, feel better,
Yeah.
right? It's kind of
Yeah.
something I'm still really learning about. But
Hmm. I find that like I'm
mhm.
an emotional person in a different way, because like I don't think I've ever had a problem being heard my whole life, or being validated. Like I've been, like I mean, I had a pretty solid one-on-one relationship, like I didn't have my siblings around growing up because they were off with my parents and I lived with my grandparents, right? And so I had
Mm.
I had a lot of attention and focus on just myself. So, you know, um I guess maybe that's a bad thing now because I feel like everybody's focus and attention should be on me all of the time. So, I think that might be a little bit of the negative, but to me, it's whatever. But yeah,
That's
like,
our t-shirts. Remember, we're
yeah,
gonna get the t-shirts made that they're, I'm effing delightful.
yes, because it's true. Everybody over
Yeah.
here. But I mean,
Yeah.
so
Me, look at me, look at me.
yeah, right here, right here. I, so I'm an emotional person a different way. But I get emotionally frustrated. And so um it's like not a running joke, but a joke kind of like when I talk with my mom, because I'm very emotional with certain things, and I'll phone my mom and I'll be like upset and crying about something. And she'll be like, just stop that right now. And I'm like, I can't help it. And so then I always bug her and I'm like, you're so emotionless. And she's like, well, you have enough for the both of us. So, but yeah, like I think, yeah, like I'm, yeah, I see it in a different way, but I can understand when you're not being heard that it gets frustrating and emotional and, you know,
Yeah.
I
I
think.
think it's the dynamic, right? I remember being so frustrated once with Trevor, like so upset that I took a coffee cup and I threw it at the floor.
Uh-huh.
And like I'm not a violent, we don't there's no physical
No.
altercations. I'm pretty much a pacifist, right?
Yeah.
Whatever. But this coffee cup, it was forever the shame right up until the day we moved out of that house or right close to it because that it cut the linoleum
Oh.
in the kitchen floor. And so that mark was always there until we moved out. We had to like Trevor had to replace that little square in the floor of this like ripped linoleum because I had had like a big hissy fit
Yeah.
and threw a coffee cup at the floor.
Yeah.
I don't even think the coffee cup broke, but it
Oh,
somehow like
it just
just nudged that enough. But
yeah, I did. I think I've done 2 things like that. One time, like I used to smoke like 13 years ago. My husband smokes. He's trying to quit, so he vapes, but he used to roll his smokes and like roll them. And so we would have this giant tub of tobacco. And like one night, things just weren't going the way they should. And I got so mad that I whipped that and hit it and like the lid popped off and there was like tobacco everywhere.
oh
So then I was
no.
even more mad because that stuff is expensive. You know, like that's not cool. So I was like more mad at myself because it was like, what are you doing? Like I was trying to like prove a point and it just totally backfired, you know?
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
I remember the kids were little, I don't know, and I stayed home for most of the time and so I was always trying to look at how to save money. I mean, try to do things cheaply. And Trevor was an artist, not like he made a lot of money, so trying to do my part, whatever.
Yeah.
So I buy this giant like 40-pound box of peaches and I'm going to make peach jam.
Mhm.
And have I told you this story before?
Nope.
I'm not sure.
I can only
So
imagine
I'm
though.
starting on, and I have the whole ADHD thing where you can start something, and then partway through, that's when you realize, oh no, I've bitten off more than I can
Yeah.
chew. But whatever, I'm through these. The peaches are cooking. I've got this big vat in it, but the kitchen's exploded, right? Because I
Yeah.
probably didn't know that you had to peel every,
Oh yeah.
peach and like they're messy and I've got little kids around or whatever. And I was so frustrated, so overwhelmed. And I remember Trevor coming in the kitchen and he looks around and he's like, how much is a jar of peaches? And I lost my
Yep.
ever loving mind. I went ballistic. I took this giant boiling vat of peach schmutz
Yeah.
and I flung the whole thing into the garbage can.
Yeah.
And I mean, that poor guy, like
Oh yeah.
he didn't even like peach jam, but
Yeah.
all it took was like, how much is a jar of peaches? And
And it
I
was
was
like
just like,
it's
I had a
on.
total meltdown. It was like all that work for nothing because I threw it all in the
Yeah.
garbage.
Yeah, well sometimes
Uh,
your emotions get the better of you and like it shouldn't get that far, but sometimes stuff happens, right? Like it just yeah. I mean, this isn't
Emotional regulation. I don't even know if kids these days learn about that. You see
mhm.
adults that have no idea how to do that,
Yeah.
right? One of the biggest lessons and is for people, for my kids, for myself, was learning how to apologize.
Mhm.
Like, how do you actually just apologize in a way that is truthful, and I feel like people get stuck, and my
Yeah.
kids, I see people their age out there too, and I don't even know how people, you see these, people just flying off the handle
Yeah.
and they don't seem to think through much, and yeah, it's
Well,
tough.
I know this isn't like about parenting, but like I was at work one time and something had happened and I worked by myself. So it's not like I had any way to sort of like talk to like a coworker about it or, kind of express myself. And I was so mad that I grabbed my checklist and I put like the biggest check marks on everything, like as if somebody was gonna notice. But it was like just a checklist that I looked at and my boss looked at. But I was like, I checked it off with like I was mad. I was so mad and I slammed the book shut and I put it up in the cupboard and I go to turn and I wear flip flops 99% of my time on this earth and I catch my toe on the desk and I
Oh
split
no.
it open. And in that moment, I sat there and I was reflecting and I was like, was it really worth that much anger? Like really was it that like worth it? Like just take a deep breath next time. Like you don't need to get so out of control, but my toe was bleeding and there's blood everywhere. So I was even like just more mad, but then I was trying to breathe through it, right? But it's just sometimes
Yeah.
it boils over and you do
Yeah.
something that's completely inappropriate. I mean, nobody saw
I
mine, so it's
remember.
not like it made a point or anything.
It didn't wasn't a teachable moment for anybody else other than you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called just take
Mhm.
a minute.
Yeah,
Just take a
just
minute.
breathe, you're okay.
Yeah, we don't